Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done a video, but I want to do a video today about how I am trying to save my hair. I've seen a lot online about different protocols of how people are trying to save their hair from balding, and this is the way that I'm doing it at the moment. But just quickly, the science of how you actually lose your hair is kind of interesting. I say it all the time on this channel, but if you look at the pathway of testosterone and where it actually starts from, cholesterol through a number of enzymes is converted to testosterone. The thing that is killing your hair follicles is DHT, which testosterone converts into DHT via an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase. Now, DHT is about 5 times more potent than testosterone in binding to androgen receptors across your body. In particular, it's very heavily expressed in skin tissue, including the scalp. I have a few guys who I coach that are on cream, so testosterone cream, and they often have a lot higher levels of DHT in their blood because there's so much more 5-alpha reductase enzyme in their skin tissue. The testosterone is being converted at a much higher rate into DHT, as opposed to some of my guys who I coach on injectable esters. You don't get as much conversion there because it's straight into the muscle belly, which doesn't have a lot of 5-alpha reductase in there already. But it is DHT that is the main culprit in miniaturizing your hair follicles, which basically means shrinking them and to the point where they die, essentially. And the theory goes something like this. When we are young, the physical pressure on the hair follicle from the weight of our scalp and our hair is actually buffered a little bit by the fat tissue that we have when we're younger. And a dermis layer that is quite well hydrated when we're young, the cells are quite hydrated and it can buffer the weight of the scalp. However, as we get older, we lose this subcutaneous fat tissue, and what happens is there's not that buffer zone anymore, and the pressure on the hair follicle actually increases. And interestingly, this is actually sped up by testosterone because testosterone typically reduces fat tissue, makes us more anabolic, and subcutaneous fat tissue is decreased, meaning this process is actually sped up. And the hair follicle, as we get older, has to work against this increased pressure in the scalp, and the hair follicle will be working against the higher pressure to actually reach its final stage of growth. And there is a theory that to support this increased growth, the body actually pulls more androgens to the scalp, DHT being one of these, but paradoxically the DHT causes further erosion of the buffer or the subcutaneous buffer, which means that the hair follicle is then forced to overcome even more pressure because that buffer and hydration isn't there. So it can't grow to its full size and becomes smaller and smaller with each successive cell cycle of that hair follicle. Basically, miniaturization occurs and hair loss increases. And the theory states that it's more a physical pressure thing. And if it is this physical pressure and weight, as well as DHT, it makes sense because in men who are balding, you're not losing hair from the sides here because there's actually not much gravity or weight here. You typically lose it on the crown and temples where the pressure is vertical. So the pressure is straight down here from gravity, and the idea is that DHT is killing these off because there's not much fat tissue as we get older, and you start to lose it in the crown and the temples like a typical Norwood scale would indicate. So stopping the conversion of testosterone to DHT is going to be your first line of defense against hair loss. So there are 2 drugs that do this. One of them is the most common, and that is finasteride. So this stops the conversion of testosterone to DHT at about 70%, so it will stop about 70% conversion, or no, it will actually reduce DHT levels in the blood by 70%-ish. Dutasteride is a much stronger one, and this will block, I think, about 90 to 95% of DHT in the blood. Now, a lot of people say DHT doesn't matter in the blood, or blood levels of DHT don't matter so much because it's your sensitivity in the scalp to DHT. I think that if you're reducing blood levels of DHT, the scalp will follow. So if you're reducing blood levels, naturally the scalp is also, your scalp levels of DHT are also going to be reduced. I take 1 of these per day. This is 0.5 milligrams of dutasteride. I was on finasteride before 1 milligram a day is the usual dosage. And I am yet to get blood work done on dutasteride, but that will be coming in about 2 weeks. and I'm going to be interested in the difference between how much more dutasteride suppresses my DHT levels compared to finasteride. So that's your first line of defense. You need to actually tackle the DHT being produced in the scalp. If you're not tackling that, you're really fighting an uphill battle, because no matter what you do on the external surface level, underneath you're going to have DHT killing off your hair follicles. So sorting out your blood levels of DHT is going to be critical first, and that's your first line of defense. The second thing I do is use this minoxidil 5%. This is a topical foam, and the idea behind minoxidil, it was never actually sold as a hair loss drug. I'm pretty sure it was a blood pressure drug originally that then they found had significant impact on hair loss, and it subsequently became marketed as a hair loss product. Basically, the idea behind this is that minoxidil has been shown to increase the rate of DNA synthesis in anagen bulbs of hair follicles. So basically what that means is it stimulates hair cells to move from a resting phase to a growing phase in the cell cycle, because hair follicles, or the hair follicle itself, is like a cell and has a natural cell cycle just like any other cell in your body. So this will try and stimulate it into a growing phase, which is interesting. I've seen some good results from minoxidil. I just put in a little bit. I like this. I haven't tried the gel. A lot of people don't like the gel version because it's like sticky, but this is good. You just put it in and it's pretty like, it's just a foam. So you put it in and then it dries quickly. You can just put it through your hair and it dries quickly, and it doesn't leave too much like residue or anything. I've just put it here because I feel like when I was looking at my hair, I was losing it a bit here. And I feel like I've slowed down the hair loss progression a lot, because when I go in the shower now and I look at my fingers, I don't have as many hairs coming out, which is good because I don't want hairs coming out in the shower at an increased rate. And I do feel like it's slowed down my hair loss a bit. I'm probably prone to hair loss. My dad is balding, and my grandfather on my mum's side is also balding. So, and that typically seems to be, the grandfather on the mum's side typically seems to be the one to have more of a say genetically in if you're going to bald or not. Number 3, which I don't have here, but it is a shampoo with ketoconazole in it. This is like a very mild androgen receptor blocker, and it's an anti-dandruff shampoo, but it has been shown that 1% keto shampoo increased hair diameter after 6 months. And it's also, like I said, a weak androgen receptor antagonist. So it competes with the androgen receptor for binding with DHT and testosterone. And if it can bind first, it will block DHT from binding to the receptor and killing off your hair follicles. Number 4 that I do probably once a week is derma roll my hair. Now, this actually isn't ideal. Some people say derma stamp is better. This is a 1.5 millimeter little spikes here, as you can see. You get little spikes, and that's a 1.5 millimeter. And I just roll gently in areas that I feel like are receding on my hairline. The idea behind this is because you're creating little damage in your scalp, the body will send growth factors to heal that, and the idea is that by sending growth factors, it will also send growth factors to stimulate hair growth again. And there is some research to show that it actually activates stem cells in your scalp. These are undifferentiated cells, so the body hasn't actually differentiated them yet into hair follicles, but there is some evidence that by derma rolling, you can increase the amount of cells that are turned into hair follicles and therefore increase hair growth as well. Pretty much, it's like a wound healing response. You're creating a wound, like micro trauma in your skin by rolling, and yeah, you get more growth, I suppose. I haven't noticed much. I do this once every 7 to 10 days. You don't want to press too hard. I'm going to get a derma stamp because I feel like the roller, you don't get much actual coverage. You're only getting a part of the roller touching your skin at any one time. So a stamp is actually better in that way because you can just stamp it on, press, and then pull it out. There are also pens that you can get that, automatic, like motorized pens that go in and out. But yeah, so that is what I do. And then finally, which I don't recommend this because it's a very untested drug, as in there's no evidence at all, there's no clinical trials really on this, is RU58841, which is a research compound which has been shown to be a very strong inhibitor of DHT binding to the androgen receptor. So instead of something like finasteride and dutasteride, which works on the enzyme that converts testosterone to DHT, this actually works on the androgen receptor itself. So it occupies the binding site, or the active binding site of the androgen receptor, and will stop DHT and testosterone from getting in there, meaning that DHT can't exert its usual effect on hair. So it's like a placeholder. Instead of DHT, you get this compound in there that tells DHT to go away, basically. I put just a few drops of this, and I've just been trying it over the past few weeks, a few drops on my temples. I've seen a little bit of regrowth, I think. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend that because there's no long-term safety data on this. It was just a little experiment I wanted to try to see if I could get any extra growth in my hair. And that's it at the moment, guys. So I just wanted to do a video because there's a lot of conflicting research. If you're starting to go bald and you want a solid protocol, I would recommend either finasteride or dutasteride, a derma roller probably once a week, or once every week to once every 2 weeks. And then I would do minoxidil topical. There are some people who do oral minoxidil but seem to get more side effects. The other thing as well is you can get side effects significantly. There are a few people with like significant side effects from DHT blockers. So always consult your doctor first. This is just my protocol, don't actually follow it. But just some suggestions on the science of hair loss. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.